Let's move this to the border, gentlemen. The Biden administration, this is from Mark B. The Biden administration seems to have lost control of the U.S. Mexico border. Having said that, what are the potential consequences of his new policy somewhat rewarding border crossers now with a year to live in the U.S. freely? What's the plan behind this, and how could this either succeed or backfire? Bryan, let's have you bet first on this one.
Well, it's created a crisis at the border. It's just the right terminology for it. Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas has acknowledged that we're on track to have the largest number of illegal border crossings in 2 decades. And I believe the number in February of arrests is somewhere around 100,000 in the month of February alone. So it's created a crisis at the border, and this is a crisis that President Biden and his administration spoke into existence. I think that his politics and and the rhetoric that's being used about the border has invited this great surge in illegal crossings. So, ultimately, I think you need to look at the result of what this is doing. Not only do we have a crisis at our border, but people are getting hurt on this journey. People are getting hurt in detention. Detention facilities are not a place that we want to keep people. I mean, Trump didn't want to keep people in detention facilities, and he certainly wasn't inviting people to come and fill them up. But having a border is going to be part of having a nation state. I mean, that will never go away. If the left, if the Democrats who got elected made their voters believe that they were going to get rid of the border altogether, then they lied to them. And I think they might have gotten some votes on that. But really what they've done is worsened it, because we've got a border and yet we've got this surging crisis. So the question is, what can be done about this? And I think that the administration is paralyzed in actually achieving any type of, de-escalation here by their own politics. They can't go against their own, party's ideology, and that would have to happen to do anything about the border crisis. So what happens here? I honestly don't know. But again, it's a crisis that has been spoken into being by the president and his administration. And it's a crisis that he is doing everything he can to deflect from. We saw the media gag order on being able to access the border detention facilities. But they switched facilities and went from cages to detention camps and tried to spin it as something good. I mean, this is propaganda of the same order that we were just talking about in the previous question. So what the American people need to do is remember this in the next election. And we need to have a new approach to this.
I'll jump in. If I could jump in real quick. The 2 policy points which made President Trump's policy successful were related to enforcement and engagement. I'll cover the latter first, the engagement issue. How do you stop a river from running? You actually put up dams inside of it, and that's what the Trump administration essentially did. They went and partnered with our Latin American countries, and made sure that each one of those countries did their part to slow down the refugee movement, to basically set up requirements for if you're seeking asylum, you got to go to one of the asylum centers in your own country. You can't come up here. We're not going to let you in. And then they actually got the Mexican military engaged to start doing more to prevent these waves from coming through. There was actually an interdiction of these things. It was very effective. And my friend, Assistant Undersecretary of Defense for Western Hemisphere, Jose de la Pena, briefed me on this 2 years ago in great detail, the depth of the concept of how they were working with Latin America. It's something the Biden administration just does not seem to understand. You have partners out there. The Mexicans don't want these people coming through any more than we want them coming through, and yet somehow it's incentivized by criminal enterprises, multiple criminal enterprises. And Mexico, as much as I think they want to help, have their own problems with bribery, corruption, and all this, that, and the other. So they are limited as well. So that what was working in this policy was immediately removed by the Biden administration. All that work gone. So it was like a dam breaking on a river and everything coming through. And then secondly, the strict enforcement on the border is no longer strict enforcement. To Bryan's point, you get a year vacation a taxpayer expense, $77,000 per person just for the hotels. Are you kidding me? We have people living on the streets. We have people on the streets in Los Angeles who are living in tents, and you're going to give illegal aliens $77,000 a year?
That's for housing.
I don't get it. But I'm just saying those things were effective under the Trump administration, and they were removed immediately. And obviously the obvious result, the predictable outcome is the flood we now see. Sorry, Jay, go ahead.
Yeah, it's really fascinating because the Republican Party is famously bad at creating situations that work in their own favor. They always somehow create situations that work in the opposition's favor. But this is something that Trump accomplished by setting up so many good systems with the wall and the interdiction that deals with the South America, that the Democrats no longer can do what they did until now, which was let millions of people slip in quietly. There's no more quietly. And so therefore, Trump has actually put something in place where even though Biden did executive orders and cut off certain policies, but you cannot do it quietly anymore. And once it's not quietly, and the majority of the American people is against it, that's a bad issue for the Democrats. So they, in a way, Trump left behind landmines for the Democrats to trip on, and that's something quite effective that he accomplished.
Yeah, and I think that they'll, in the longer term, at least, for if Biden is going to run again, or any of his administration folks, they're going to get a lot of flack from a lot of the imagery that, you have a situation down at the border with regards to the number of people that are now kept in cages or bubbles or whatever you want to call them, that even former President Trump has been saying this is a humanitarian crisis. So when you even have Donald Trump calling them out on it, this is something that's going to come back on you. And we've seen this with, let's say, former President Obama, wherein a lot of the Latin American communities are saying, look, we don't want schools, as in the case in San Francisco, named after him because of his treatment of, the kids in cages and how he really started. And this was something that happened under his watch. So I think they're trying to placate parts of the base at the expense of the American people, but it will come back and bite them over the long run.
Well, to that point, Tim, so much of what the left counts on is people believing the veneer of their propaganda rather than checking into the facts of the reality, which they do. And this has been a huge problem. People like Obama, not me, but people apparently like Obama because he has this really smooth, he's like the smooth jazz version of presidents, you can listen to it in an elevator, but you get out and it's like, what the hell did I just listen to? They count on you being focused on that. Same with Biden. Joe is just kind of like Uncle Joe. Despite the fact his wife wears fishnet stockings for the Easter egg hunt on the White House lawn. I guess that's okay. What do I care? But I'm just saying that we need to focus on what they do rather than what they want us to look at relating to their image.
That's the way it should be with all politicians.
Tony, I want to give a specific name to the programs that you mentioned that the Biden administration canceled that Trump had set in place to try to address the border crisis. It was the Migrant Protection Protocol and the Safe Third Country Agreement. Both of those ended by the Biden administration, ostensibly for political purposes. But I encourage our viewers to look those up.
And it was for political purposes. Trust me, they were working. I know the people involved.
By the way, I just want to add one more point, which is that this is going to get a lot worse. Because at some point they're going to create caravans. Really, they're giving Biden a honeymoon by only coming spontaneously. Once they start caravans, it's going to be huge.
And they should. If I was sitting down and if I was in one of these countries and I was considering such a move, now is the best time to do it. And I think that message has really gone out that there's not really going to be any definitive stopping force to, prevent this kind of migration.
They said Uncle Joe will let him in. That's what they said. Yeah, exactly.
And I think he's pigeonholed himself too. I don't think he's got a way out of this now.
No, he has.
Jose, can you see the national anthem?
Well, and I want to make one more point too that connects to our first question, which you can see the amount of attention, national and international, that the left can bring to an issue that they want to try to resolve vis-a-vis Georgia, right? Now, my point on the last question was, if the issue is the accessibility of IDs, then why aren't we focusing on that? So let's come down to the actual cause of all of this migration. Humanitarian crises in countries in Central America. Why is the left not running a campaign to bring attention to the humanitarian crises happening in these countries to try to address the surge in migration, which is a symptom of the problem that they could be calling attention to, but they aren't.
Great. Look, Bryan, I join you on calling for that issue to be examined, because that is what the Pentagon and State Department were trying to address. How do we help those nations resolve their own internal issues without us intervening?
I hope you enjoyed this clip of our special London Center for Policy Research Thought to Action Ask Us Anything session, which is made available in its entirety to our Patreon subscribers. If you would like to be part of that and watch this full program and others exclusively, also get sneak previews of the ones we put out on YouTube and Rumble, please feel free to be part of our Patreon page and find us at patreon.com/thought-to-action. That's patreon.com/thought-to-action. You can also find out what the London Center is up to on our website, londoncenter.org. Once again, thank you for viewing.